copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, copy. Deja vu.
Deja vu.
There is a fifth dimension.
Both shadow and substance of things and
Suddenly up ahead.
just crossed over. You're moving into another dimension.
Next stop, the Twilight Zone.
All right, welcome everyone to Twilight Zoned. I guess I'm your host by default, Michael.
Already off to a smashing start.
And that voice you heard right there is Mark. Our thought for this podcast is to go through all, what did we decide? There were 154, 156 episodes or so of the Twilight Zone.
I mean,
In order-
you just told me a number and I assumed that it was the truth. I didn't actually look it up.
It's 156 episodes. I'm looking at it right now. We're going to go through the old Twilight Zone, the one that started in 1959. We're going to go in order.
I think if we make it through 156 of this, we should plow right into the new ones.
I think we should start a different. I think we should do like Bonanza or something after that. But that's Andy Daly did a joke about doing Bonanza. Okay. So our first episode, our episode number 1, the first Twilight Zone that aired in 1959, was called. Oops, I lost this.
Where is everybody?
Where is everybody? Where is everybody? I had the wrong thing going. Okay, where is everybody? So we got a little synopsis here. Mike Ferris
from IMDb.
From IMDb, that's correct. Yes, we're looking at IMDb. The synopsis: Mike Ferris finds himself alone in the small Oakwood town, and without. Wait a minute, this is not a well-written sentence. Mike Ferris finds
the town
himself...
of Oakwood, I think, is what they were looking for.
Yeah, Mike Ferris finds himself alone in the small Oakwood town, and without recollection about his name, where he is, or who he is. Mike wanders through the town trying to find a living soul. The tension increases, and Mike has a breakdown. Directed by Robert Stevens, written by, of course, Rod Serling, and starring Earl Holliman, James Gregory, and Paul Langton. One of the things
let's be honest. Only one of these people is actually starring in it for like 99% of the episode.
Okay, well, IMDb says there's 3 stars. One of the things about watching old TV in general and Twilight Zone episodes in particular is thinking about how many of these people are dead now. And so I had to look it up. Earl Holliman, still alive and kicking.
That was the main guy?
Yeah, the main guy, born September 11th, 1928 in Louisiana.
All right.
So that's our recap.
He's like 91 now.
I don't want to do the math right now,
What'd
but
you say, 28?
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah.
Very good.
And this is his biggest claim to fame, was he was in this first episode of Twilight Zone.
He was also in
Wandering Around Being Sweaty.
He was also in Forbidden Planet, The Sons of Katie Elder, Giant, which didn't that win an Academy Award? You're a film guy.
Is that the stupid Texas movie? I could not make it through that film.
Elizabeth Taylor, Rock Hudson, and Jimmy
it's
Dean.
like 18 hours long. That's not true. It's probably like 4. I don't know.
Not
it feels
Austin
like
Jackson.
it's 18 hours long.
Oh, well, I doubt it was. I can find the running time. He was also in Visit to a Small Planet. Has not acted since 2000 when he was in an episode of Chicken Soup for the Soul as Gramps and The Perfect Tenant.
I mean, that sounds about right that he would be Gramps. I mean, at that point in 2004, he would have been 76 or 7 or something. I mean, the fact he's still acting in anything is pretty good.
Yeah,
I plan on being dead by the time I'm that age.
Oh, I plan on being dead by the time this episode airs. He's in one episode of Empty Nest.
And everyone listening to the episode is wishing they were dead and not listening to it.
If you wish you were dead, give us a call.
Give us a rating on, what are you supposed to, like, Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast.
Okay, so we both have watched this episode. I watched it, I think, 2 days ago. And Mark, we both watched this episode within the last week, so it's
right.
fresh
But
in our
you
mind.
had seen it like relatively recently before, because you were going through these. This I think was my first time seeing this episode. I've seen some of the older ones, not in a while, but this one I believe is the first time I had seen it.
Okay. So, and that's one thing, kind of what gave me the idea for the podcast, is because I've been watching all these episodes of Twilight Zone, and I think I made it, there's 5 seasons. If there, of those 156 episodes, I've probably made it to, I don't know, 80 or 90. Oh, and by the way, if you want to follow along with us in this podcast and be watching these episodes before we do this podcast, they're available on Netflix. At least currently September 25th, 2019, in the United States of America. All the old Twilight Zone episodes are available.
I thought you meant like follow along, like watch it while they're listening to the podcast. I'm like, that would be a horrible experience.
It's going to be in real time. We're going to do 22-minute episodes that are run in concurrently with the episode. We're going to do basically a
so at this point, we haven't even
theater.
talked about the episode, and they'd be like 2/3 of the way through, and then in the last 5 minutes, we're just going to cram in everything about the episode.
Yeah, but we'll do it in triple time. So then they restart the episode and speed up their podcast to triple time.
Or you just have to say, like, just pause the episode here for about half an hour while we talk about it, and then hit play again.
Yeah, that's what do that, guys.
If the problem was that you really wanted to watch like a feature-length film and all you could find was an episode of Twilight Zone, then you should listen to this podcast with it and just like pause it for like an hour in the middle, and then you have like a 90-minute episode.
So I feel like we need to justify this idea a little bit. Mark, you are a film professor. Are we blowing up your spot too much? Do you want to be anonymous for this? Too late. Mark, you're a film professor down in Texas at an unnamed Methodist university in Texas.
The abbreviation is SMU, but we won't tell anybody what it stands for.
And it's a directional school. And I'm not even
going to figure out what a directional school is. I don't think that in any way justifies this podcast. You failed if that was the goal.
No, not justify, but like, you do actually have film credentials. I don't. I'm more of a comedian. I'm a lawyer, if that means anything. I wouldn't even say I'm like a film buff. I don't really watch that many movies.
No, in fact,
anymore.
I think the discussion of this started with like, we should do a podcast, and one of the ideas was all the movies that you can't stand that are like classics and really important films that you just hate. So
and vice versa.
versa.
I'm not the bad guy in this one.
No, you're clearly the bad guy.
And then you explain to me why they're actually good. But then it morphed into this, as many good ideas do, and it became something
many good ideas morph into a Twilight Zone podcast.
As far as I know. Well, and this is also relatively relevant because the new Twilight Zone episodes are coming out. I should have researched that a little bit, but Twilight Zone is back in the public zeitgeist.
There are some episodes out of the new one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get into this, Mark. Do you want to, since you're fresh to this, do you want to lead us into the discussion of this actual episode and what we thought about this actual episode?
Sure. And maybe I'll start with, so one of the things we were talking about when we were planning this out was, after you've seen some number of Twilight Zone episodes, you really only have a couple of plots that they just sort of vary the details of it a lot. So since I was watching these for the first time, Mike having already seen them, at least the first 90 or so recently, I stopped it early on in the episode and kind of made some notes on what I thought was going to happen and what I thought the episode was about, to see how good my guess would be.
I love this. So tell me.
Okay, so I stopped it a couple times. So first off, very first 2 minutes, I think it was or maybe it's like 3 minutes in, including the intro from Rod Serling and all the Twilight Zone music and stuff. So what has happened at this point is he's like gone into this diner, sees there's a pot boiling on the stove, there's music playing, and there's nobody else there. There's music playing on the jukebox, so somebody theoretically had like just put money into it. It's 1959,
there's a cigarette
so probably
smoking.
like a penny.
I think there's a cigarette still smoldering.
That's in the police station later.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
So it was like literally 2 minutes in, and my guess at that point, which I'll be honest, I didn't think was gonna be it because it doesn't feel like a Twilight Zone-y thing. But my best guess at trying to explain this was that it was the rapture, and everyone
Ooh.
else had been like pulled up to
Okay.
heaven. He was like the one guy left.
Okay.
So that
Good
was
guess.
the first thought. Then by the first commercial break, which is about 5 minutes in, so I'd watched another couple minutes. He had like I think wandered toward or into town a little bit, and it's like all empty. I decided it was some kind of an experiment.
Ooh.
And what I was thinking, so have you seen Dark City? It's like late 90s. Alex
Yeah, I
Perez
think
directed. Is it Eric Bana stars in it?
you recommended that to me, and I think I thought it was a different movie. I think I got a different. Wasn't there also like Dark something else around that time? Dark or something
There's
City?
probably a lot of dark things. I was like gonna crack up if you're like, and I watched Dark Crystal instead, which is that weird Jim Henson like puppets thing.
I listened to a lot of The Darkness, and I thought
I
that
just
was
sat in the dark for a while and thought it was a movie. Okay,
movie
so
theaters are dark. Sorry, go ahead.
so I was thinking like maybe aliens captured this guy because at this point he said he doesn't remember who he is or how he got there, and like had built this city to sort of test what people do. Like we would have like rats in a maze here, and it was something
Sure.
like that. And I was thinking of in Dark City. This is a spoiler alert, but the movie's 20 years old. So if you're listening to the podcast, you had your chance.
Oh, also spoiler alerts for this 1959 television series. Just to be clear, we are not going to give you spoiler alerts for the next 155 episodes after this one.
I think in the middle of each episode, we should just give a major spoiler for something current that like just happened. And by the way, as we're recording this just was announced. No, so Dark City, it's these aliens who are experimenting on people to kind of see how their memories work or something, and they built this basically city on an isolated planet or moon, and they have people in it, and they keep changing their memories and seeing how they behave. So I was thinking it was something like that, because then it explained why he didn't remember who he was, and he had just been transported there, and it all feels pretty staged. Like if it had just been an empty city, I would have thought maybe there had been like some sort of virus or bomb or apocalypse or something. But because there were these hints of like somebody had just been there, but clearly nobody is there or is anywhere close enough they could have just been there, I thought it was some sort of experiment on him.
These are two terrific guesses so far. Also, I'm really enjoying. If you want to do this for every single episode, then we don't have to do a synopsis at the beginning because you're running us through the episode. But these are fantastic.
I kind of like the IMDb synopsis, particularly when it's poorly written. That like is interesting.
And I stumble over the words.
So that was where I was like 5 minutes in, and then I had a couple other ideas kind of as it went through, like other things I was trying to think that it could be. But I wasn't super confident in any of them. So I'll say, at least with this being the first episode and me not having learned what are the 3 or 4 plots that they use, I thought they did a good job of sort of keeping you in suspense as he's wandering around the town. After about 10 minutes of him wandering around and not finding anybody, the next like 10 minutes go nowhere. It's just more of him wandering around and not finding anybody. Like you definitely felt. I was thinking as a film professor, I'm like, man, there's a really good like 10-minute short film in this 22-minute episode.
Yes, agreed.
The other things I thought of were maybe like a city to test bomb, and I'm thinking, I hate to reference this movie because it was terrible,
Indiana Jones.
Yeah, remember the right, the beginning of Crystal Skull where it like looks like a city but it's empty and there's just like mannequins in it. But the fact that there was like the pot boiling and the cigarette in the police station that was still smoking, like that made that all seem unlikely. I also thought maybe it was like a hell, like he had died and this was like what was in store for him. Because they kept having this thing where you would hear the church bell ringing, and he would look at the church, and I didn't understand why he didn't go over to the church to see who was ringing the bell. Because that would have seemed logical. So the only thing I could think of, which turned out to be wrong, but I was thinking like, okay, so they're trying to get this church imagery in to sort of foreshadow he's actually dead and in some sort of hell or heaven. It turned out it was just like poor direction that they thought, let's keep showing this church.
These are great insights. I find it very interesting that 2 of your theories were religious based or spiritual based, let's say. The idea of the rapture and then the idea of he's in hell or in heaven. See, interestingly enough, that would be heaven for some people, a town with no one in it, and then hell for some other people. Those are great thoughts. I'm sorry, but keep going.
No, those were kind of thoughts, and I'll say I did not guess what actually was going on until the end. I think my thing about the experiment, I was on the right track, but
yes, for sure,
thinking that it was like aliens had built it was off. I gotta say, I was a little disappointed in myself. Should I like explain what the ending is?
Yeah, I think you might as well now.
All right, you had
beware spoilers.
You now had 60 years to watch it. You had your chance. The lead actor is still alive. You can go ask him what happened.
He will not remember. He certainly has dementia by now.
Or maybe this is like the only thing he remembers from his life. I don't know.
Ironically, the character had amnesia, and I'm glad you dropped that in there because that was not in the synopsis. The character has amnesia.
It was not. And there's like a thing in the very first scene where he pulls out some money because he's at the diner. He's like, "You got a customer here. I got money. It's American money." He's like, "American money? I guess I'm American."
Yeah.
So he's figuring it out. So what happens at the end is he kind of has this like breakdown when he just can't find anybody, and he's kind of going crazy and like bashing on the crosswalk button, like to make the light change. And then we cut out to, it's basically like I'm going to say military, and he says he's in the Air Force. It's clearly sort of foreshadowing NASA and astronauts. But some sort of test of how somebody would do in isolation for a long time. And so he was in the Air Force, and you see some generals, and he's breaking down in this little box that he's been confined to with no human contact for, what did they say?
148 hours or something.
It was like 400 and something hours.
Oh, it's 400.
It was like a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then they talk about that they're trying to see how people would deal with long isolation for, it looked like he was, they have a scene where he's like looking at the moon and he's like, "Stay up there, we're coming," or something. Like he was going to be an astronaut, and they wanted to see how someone would last on that. And one of the generals makes reference to like, it was the length of time that it would take to like get to the moon, orbit it, and come back.
Right.
So that's what it was. And I felt a little bit bad because, so it turns out it's kind of all in his head, and it's a delusion or psychosis. But as Mike, I think I'm very into The Matrix. That is one of my favorite all-time films. And it just had its 20th anniversary, and so I got to go see it in the theater again.
Please don't spoil it. I'm getting around to it.
Which was well, I'll just say it was another whole thing that I could go on a long rant about. We have a fake Dolby cinema here in Dallas that I went to, and the sound quality in it was quite bad, which was not what I was expecting out of Dolby Cinema. So if I was Dolby, I would take my name off it.
Damn.
See Facebook for further rants.
You also blew up where you teach by mentioning Dallas.
Also, we already said the name of the school.
I know. That's the joke, Mike.
I don't get humor, Mike, so that's going to be tough for you as a comedian.
Cool. You do the film stuff. I'll do the humor.
Insert joke here. So that the whole idea of like, living this whole separate life inside your head was very much like something I was just thinking about and just talking with people about because of that movie, and completely missed the boat on this was all happening inside his head.
That's interesting, though. I did not think about that specific. So later on, we're going to discuss a little bit more about the modern, in kind of how Twilight Zone. One of the reasons I wanted to, as I was watching this and wanted to approach Mark about this project, I was like, there are a lot of thematic things that are still relatively applicable in today's era. One of the things I wanted to backtrack a little bit that you mentioned, Mark, with and you mentioned, this is probably not appropriate for Twilight, or probably not progressive. They probably weren't that progressive. It's crazy to think 1959 was when this came out, and like, so when it was revealed that they were trying to prep him for a moon mission, I was like, wait, oh right, this was 10 years before we actually got to the moon. So I have some thoughts about this episode.
That's good, because we're doing a podcast about it.
So one of the things that bothered me the absolute most about this episode, and I hate to nitpick, but like that's in my nature. And like,
I was gonna say, you don't hate to nitpick. I know.
I love nitpicking. I'm a nitpickery. This guy not only was U.S. Air Force, but was one of, at least in consideration for being sent to the moon. This guy spent like a good, so he sees in one of the scenes, he sees a car parked across the street and ostensibly a woman sitting in the passenger seat. And he's half a block away, and it's clear as frickin' day that this is a mannequin sitting in the passenger seat of this car. And he starts yelling to her. It's like, okay, first of all, Air Force, to my knowledge, Air Force pilots or anyone in the Air Force has to have excellent eyesight, unless I guess maybe they're going to be an officer. So the
moon's a pretty big target. Like, you can see that even with.
But the dials on their instruments are tiny. But so he's yelling to her, and he's walking across the street and just carrying on. It takes him to, and the woman, of course, is not responding because she's a mannequin. It takes him to the point
wait a minute,
where,
Mike, this is the Twilight Zone. Like, it's possible the mannequin could respond.
Well, and maybe they were foreshadowing Mannequin and Mannequin 2, those phenomenal 80s, 90s films.
Or what was that kids show in the 80s where, like, the mannequin comes
Small
to life
Wonder.
at night? Yeah, is that it?
Well, Small Wonder, she wasn't a mannequin. She was a robot. The dad built a robot's sister for some. I don't want to get into Small Wonder. We'll do Small Wonder next one.
I think is it today's special?
Toy Story. Okay, but anyhow, he gets
I'll look that up on Google while you.
Perfect. He gets to the point where he's literally leaning on the car door, and opens the car door, and she falls sideways. That is what finally is the shocking revelation that she's a mannequin. And like, as we're going through the Twilight Zone, the old Twilight Zone, I have to remember how, like, now you can just go to the internet and watch someone like hammering a nail through their hand. Like, I've just been so desensitized, but this character hasn't been. I just feel like he should have known before he like touched her that she was a mannequin. I mean, he's getting angry at this mannequin, like shouting at it.
No, it was pretty weird. Like I was okay with that. He like saw somebody across the street, and yeah,
Sure.
It was obviously a mannequin, but like, okay, he hasn't seen anybody else. He's like, maybe it's a weird person or something. The fact that he was like at the car talking with the mannequin was pretty bad.
Right. And then the second instance.
But here's the thing: after he knows she's a mannequin, he's like still talking to her.
And then my second instance of pure.
Wait, before we move off the mannequin,
okay,
I just want to share, the show is called Today's Special. It did air in the 80s. And here is the IMDb storyline. Each night in a major city, Sam the security guard locks the closed department store and joins Jody in the children's department as she brings a special mannequin with her. With some magic words, the magic hat it wears brings it to life, and it becomes Jeff. Together with Muffy the mouse, this gang learn about various things to teach younger viewers.
I've never even heard of that. Was it a cartoon?
No, it was live action. My recollection is it was bad. I don't think I watched it regularly, but I remember it existing.
How many episodes of that are there? Maybe it'd be easier to do that.
There are 89 episodes.
Oh my God, there are not. Are you kidding?
I am not.
Oh boy.
Unless IMDb is wrong. Which is impossible. It could possibly be wrong. It actually says it had a nomination for some award. Best Children's Series, 1988, which is interesting because it only ran through 1987. That's interesting. Okay.
Got nominated in 88. Okay. So my second instance of pure USAF dumbassery is there's this scene when he runs full speed into a mirror. and I don't understand. Like, this is that old Seinfeld joke about birds running into mirrors and windows. Like, even if you didn't thought that was another room, wouldn't you try to avoid the other bird? There's a full-size man that looks exactly like him sprinting headlong into him, and he literally runs into this mirror and shatters the mirror and falls down. This is what the level of intelligence of the 1959 U.S. Air Force was.
Now, see, I'm going to cut the Air Force some slack on this and go back to my poor direction. It was clearly a gag shot where they set it up and the audience doesn't know it's a mirror until like at the we just see him like running towards what down the stairs and what looks like out of the room or towards us, and then at the very end the other him comes into frame. We realize we've been staring at a mirror and he smashes it and stuff. This was just clearly the director's like, it would be a cool shot, we'll trick the audience and they'll think he's running towards us and then it's a mirror, gotcha, with no thought whatsoever as to like, would this guy actually do this?
Okay, fair enough. I will allow that. However,
called the Air Force and said, "What would your person do if they saw a mirror and were running towards it?" And the Air Force is like, "Oh, clearly they just like run headlong into it."
Yeah, they're like, "Can we ask you a question, U.S. Air Force? Can you put your dumbest cadet on the phone?" Or they call it cadets in the Air Force, whatever. So that bothered me. But then like he didn't even. I don't even remember what the justification was for him. And I've seen this twice in the last month. I don't even remember what he thought there was another person initially, and then he didn't recognize the person as he got closer. I don't even remember. It's not even worth going.
He's like, I finally found another person. I'm going to try to knock him out with my head.
So, okay. So that was my biggest issue with the entire episode. And frankly, that's probably going to be an issue with a lot of Twilight Zone episodes because there's some real sweaty dumbasses on this show. And I will just say right now, one of the things that I mentioned to you when I was pitching the show at you,
like, who were we pitching this to?
I was pitching it to NBC. So there are,
I left you out of the room, and so we're doing it as a podcast instead.
We'll show them. So you, as a film professor, have to explain this at some point. We don't have to in this episode because it wasn't as bad. But there are some sweaty ass actors in the Twilight Zone. Like and there's episodes where it completely makes sense, but like a lot of these people are sweating profusely in these episodes, and
including our one actor in this episode.
Right? Yeah, I felt like he wasn't as bad, and I guess he was running around.
No,
but anyway.
So you had the idea, which I thought was funny, and you had mentioned that you had noticed they were sweaty. And so I kind of had that in the back of my head, but had forgotten about it because I was trying to figure out what was going on in the episode. And like about 8 or 10 minutes in, I'm like, this guy's really sweaty.
See? So, you ain't seen nothing yet, brother.
We should like rate the episodes on sweatiness to kind of see where the scale goes. And you having seen a bunch of these, can you give me like what would be like what would be a 0 of Twilight Zone sweatiness? Like nobody's sweaty at all. And then like what would like 10 be?
So I'm gonna have to give away the premise for an episode. It's the beginning premise. You learn about.
I'll forget about it by the time we do that episode.
And it's the very beginning of the episode, and it's 60 years old. So there's one episode. The Earth's orbit is decaying, so they're getting closer and closer to the sun. And this woman is in her apartment in New York. As the sun the days are getting hotter and hotter. That at least to the first 90-ish episodes, 100 episodes that I've seen, that's one I remember as a child. That is got to be the 10, I'd assume.
And that makes sense. Like the Earth is falling into the sun. Okay,
yeah.
Everyone should be pretty sweaty. Okay. Yeah.
So
I assume in that they're like just everybody is like just dripping sweat.
They are drenched, and there's a dude we'll get to that. We'll get to that episode. They are drenched in sweat in that one. But I feel like
that's a 10.
Yeah, I'd say like a 5 is any of their Old West episodes are probably a 7. I would say this is probably a 4, a 5. This is probably mid-range. Well, no, this is probably a 2 or 3.
Yes, yeah. See, not having seen those, I wanted the context. I was gonna say like a 3 or 4 because he was noticeably sweaty. Okay, we'll kind of sweatier than he probably should be for the context, but also he was like trapped alone. He's kind of running around town a lot. It looked like
that's
it was
what I'm
sunny.
saying.
I'm like, okay, it's like, it's like a level beyond how sweaty he really should be, but it wasn't like ridiculous. What I did think was funny is his face is like always pretty much drenched in sweat, but there was like no sweat on the rest of his body.
Yes.
Like it's not like you see like his sweat soaking through his armpits or anything.
Yeah.
It's just all the sweat comes out of his face.
Yes. Yeah, there was clearly just a spray bottle before every take.
Well, I was wondering if maybe that was going to be the twist at the end is he's somebody who's been operated on so that all his sweat glands are in his face, and the whole thing about everyone being gone was just like a red herring, had nothing to do with it.
Okay. So I know we're running on time here, or we're doing time. This is a time thing. So a couple more questions about this.
Okay.
They were just testing him for this trip to the moon. Don't they? First of all, I don't think on that kind of. I assume that they're putting him in hibernation, because what he was just in this pod for 2 weeks. How was he going to the bathroom?
Yeah, I was wondering if they were like if there's like food that came in through a box
Right.
or something.
Yeah. How is he feeding? How is he getting water? Don't you have to at some point when you're flying to the moon, like look out the windscreen and be like, it's a little bit, you know what? I'm just going to adjust slightly to the left. It's a little to our left in space terms.
I mean, so I think in space
Or-
terms, I think their argument was that this was really just one experiment dealing with the psychological stress of isolation, not like what
Okay.
you would actually need to do to go to the moon.
Good point.
But I have some of the same questions about like because they sort of implied, and they don't really explicitly ever come out and explain it, but they kind of implied that for like the most of the first 2 weeks he was fine just sitting in this box
Yes,
doing nothing,
doing nothing.
and then suddenly went off the deep end. I'm not sure what was going on in those 2 weeks. I also thought like this seemed like one of those things that you see a lot in or at least I see a lot in like first draft student films, particularly if they're doing sci-fi sort of or horror sort of stuff, where it's like they have an interesting idea for something and haven't really thought through like the implications of it, and then you do some rewrites on the script and sort that out. This kind of feels like they skipped that. Like their idea is, hey, this guy's alone, and then at the end we'll have the twist that it was this experiment and he's kind of gone nuts, and they didn't really think much about what the experiment would be or how it actually would have worked. It was just that he's in a box.
That's what another thing I pitched to you. I feel like Twilight Zone episodes are like onion articles. All you really need to do is read the headline and you get the joke. And certainly it's worth reading onion articles and it's worth watching these Twilight Zone episodes to get the flavor text.
Mm-hmm.
But like you don't really need to. And going back to your thing, this would have been a cool double twist. Maybe we should reimagine all the endings of Twilight Zone. So what if in those first 2 weeks he had gone psycho and he had actually killed everyone in this imaginary town, and the double reveal is he finds a stack of bodies, imaginary bodies, in this hallucinated town? That'd be freaky.
That would be interesting. Do you also think it's kind of weird? Like, I got the impression this was one of the astronauts they're potentially sending up. Like, wouldn't you want your astronauts sane? Like, not let's put them through this thing that makes them insane first until they have a psychotic break, and then we're going to send him to the moon.
Well, I think he failed. Like that was
I don't think so. He said at the end he thinks he's still going up, and they were like, good work. We'll give you some time to recover.
Well, I think that they were. So at the end, he's basically like, he looks up at the moon. He's like, "I'll see you someday, baby," or something like that. And I think they were kind of just like, "Well, we broke this guy. Bring in the next one." I don't think. That's how I kind of read it.
Because if they were sending him, that's some really bad generaling.
He shouldn't be driving a car after how he came out of that pod.
I mean, they're carrying him out on a stretcher.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So I got to talk real quick about a little bit of the filmmaking. So just sort of like one of these things where the director again was like, what would look cool without really thinking about it. So in this very end, which is like a short scene, it's like 5 minutes, although probably 4 minutes of that you didn't need because the general just explains everything 6 ways to Sunday. So first off, you have these generals like sitting watching the box in this big warehouse thing, and then like, okay, he's out, let in the press. Like they haven't even like literally gotten the guy out yet. They're like, he had a break, we're gonna get him out, let in the press, and this like horde of reporters like just runs in who are all just like waiting apparently for 2 weeks right outside the door.
And this guy's been pissing and shitting himself for 2 weeks in this box.
And they just start,
Poor guy.
you know, they start asking the general some questions so he can get out the exposition. And then, like, he and his compadres go over to literally, like, open the box and let the guy out. And all the reporters are just, like, there with them. There's, like, no, like, let's figure out what happened first, then report on it.
Yeah, let's debrief him. Also, shouldn't this be confidential? We can't get into Area 51, but this guy, like, these dudes are just standing right outside this experiment. So a couple things about the general. There is a awful lot of just people explaining things in the Twilight Zone, and that was very much a big moment. But also I loved the kind of general giving the moral of the story at the end. He's like, we simulated everything, but we can't simulate man's need for companionship. It seemed like a Treehouse of Horror episode. And you're going to notice how many times The Simpsons lifted Twilight. There's a gold mine of material for Treehouse of Horror episodes on The Simpsons.
And there's so many of the Treehouse of Horrors that I already like knew were Twilight Zone references, right. And I'm really curious as we go through this to see what new ones I pick up that I had never seen the original. There's
been 2 or 3 that I've noticed, but I haven't watched The Simpsons for 20 years. So yeah, no, you're right. I thought, and then I was like, well, we can't simulate men's need for companionship. It's like, oh,
why don't
maybe just send 2 or 3 guys. Yeah, didn't we send 3 guys to the moon the first time?
Like aside from the companionship, don't you want more than one person, like in case something goes wrong, like? And you need...
this guy can take naps, so he can sleep and eat, so he doesn't always have to. So we always have someone on the sticks, is what I would assume.
That would be
nice. We should get Buzz Aldrin on this podcast.
I'll call him up and see what we can do. So then the other thing is at the end, as the general's giving his moral of the story, as you so nicely put it, which was pretty explicit. It's like, you picture someone in the writer's room like, wait, I've got it. We can't simulate human companionship. And they all like go to the bar. They're done for the day because that was such a breakthrough. So they're carrying the guy out on the stretcher, and they have these like giant, pretty cool looking, admittedly, doors they open up. And like the crew either didn't have the money or time or whatever to light there. So they like open the doors, and there's just this like complete and total blackness. And they like carry him on a stretcher, like, you know, into a black void. I don't know what's in there, a black hole, or they're feeding him to a monster, or who knows.
Maybe that was symbolic of his descent into madness.
Well, you would think, except then they cut to the next shot, which is close-up of him on the stretcher as they're carrying, where he's, like, nicely lit and apparently outside because he's looking at the moon.
That's right.
I was like, could we, like, maybe afford one light to just, like, have a little light on in the hallway so it looks like they're carrying him to somewhere?
Yeah, these reporters, by the way, were working overtime. They're like, oh, he's going to come out of it at 10:30 at night. We all have to be there.
Just like the guy in the pod, the reporters have been sitting outside that door just pissing themselves and crapping their pants the whole time for 2 weeks.
So one thing I wanted to do is talk about kind of the modern applicability of this thematic. So isolation, I feel like, is a huge theme in Twilight Zone, and we're going to see that over and over again. But kind of the modern applicability, not necessarily of the theme, but of the episode. One of the things that I occasionally dabble in trying to write some sci-fi stuff down, and one of the recurring of my own themes that always sticks with me is just the vastness of space and just the incomprehensible vastness of space. Like I literally just read something. They were showing like a Reddit post where they're showing what would all the planets look like if the moon were replaced by all the different planets. And it was cool, and it was cool seeing Saturn was horrifying, and it was neat. But then someone pointed out in the comments, they're like, yeah, don't forget, space is so big that you could fit all the planets between us and the moon. Like that is, and probably easily, I don't even know about multiple times over, but like space is huge, and just the space between us and the moon is huge. So I one of the things I think is a cool, especially in modern era, with Greta Thunberg,
The climate activist teenager who just
Exactly.
yes.
The climate activist teenager who, by the way, I think Susan B. Anthony, Rosa Parks, like all these women who have done this girl might be the person, the one of those people that actually saves the planet. She's going to have a pretty good resume. But
which I know this isn't a politics podcast. I do want to just throw out there, she's out there doing that and like making a very impassioned speech because this is going to affect her generation and the generations to follow more than the old people like currently running things. And immediately, like some of the commentary is just, I mean, it's like so disheartening, like, you know, oh, this, you know, I don't even remember what language people were using, but like making fun of the fact she has Asperger's, saying she's equivalent to like Nazi children who were like used as pawns for photo. And like it's just, it was so depressing.
It was
glad to get to go watch Twilight Zone right after that, and there were no people. I'm like, well, if I get rid of some of those people, that would actually sound pretty good.
Well, and I would like to point out that she's doing that at like 13 years old, and we're doing a podcast about a 60-year-old sci-fi show. Okay, good for us. But so I don't
think anyone is going to confuse us with her.
So as we're sending the planet into a nightmare scenario, there is going to be, if we want to survive as a species, we are going to have to colonize another planet, and we might not find one in our own solar system. So I did look this up, and it's 81 on a current spaceship, like our fastest spaceship, where our fastest ship, it would take 81,000 years to get to the next star, just to see if there's any planets there that are habitable. Bear in mind that we only have one that we think right now that could do that. So we're talking, so the human race, that's basically half the time that humans have even been around is essentially what we're talking about. So the people that
and that's including like the earliest humans,
right? Yeah,
like
exactly.
All the way. That's not like half of
Homo
human
sapiens
history.
sapiens.
That's like
right.
Half of the existence of a species that is vaguely recognizable as human.
And think about how much that is, considering when we went into space. So it's insane, like that these ships will have to be just essentially generational ships, and these people will have to agree to go on these ships. I guess at a certain point we won't have to agree. We'll just be like, well, this planet's exploding, let's go. But like they will have to like be like, hey, this isn't for me. This is my great grandchildren, hopefully, probably a lot more than that, hopefully will find something and be able to, like, this is more of like we need the human race to survive, and really why, but like it's more of a like, this is for the species, this is not for any individual person. So I just think that this kind of thing is relatively applicable in modern times, and I like thinking about shit, like I don't know why, but I like thinking about that. I think I like to see if my mind can even comprehend.
Well, and I mean, you point out some of the reasons that you know, the work that Greta and all the other climate change activists are doing is so important, is that it really isn't practical to plan on moving the species somewhere else. Like maybe at some point along the way we can colonize a place in the sense of like have a permanent settlement somewhere, but that like Earth is gonna be our home. If we screw up Earth, the human race is going down.
Right. It's a hell of a lot easier. Everyone's like, it's impossible to stop climate changes. It would be a hell of a lot easier to push all of our cars into the ocean and be like, okay, well, we're sorry, no one has power or internet anymore. We're reverting to storytelling caveman days. Everyone gets super sweaty, and like that's our reality. Like if we,
but that's easier than getting us to another planet. Absolutely.
Right, totally. 100%, like 100% easier.
Well, so one other kind of relevant thing to this episode, and you were talking about the space and the isolation of that, is that's kind of a current, maybe not current like right today, but in this era, that's kind of the thing people are exploring more with space. So in this, you know, in the 60s, 70s, you're getting things like Star Trek and Star Wars, and I know those are totally different, but people like traveling through space and meeting all these other civilizations and stuff like that. And if you look at more recent films, it's a lot about the isolation of space. So, something like Gravity, where you're lost alone in there. Ad Astra coming out sometime soon. I haven't seen it, but from all I can tell from the trailers, like it's very much about like one person going out into space and kind of how they deal with that. Interstellar, which was fantastic. And again, they're going out for the good of the human race, not because they want to, but trying to find someplace else humanity can live, as they've completely destroyed the Earth. And there's major implications in that movie of what it does to people, just kind of being out in space alone for long periods of time.
So I just wanted to give a shout out to Olaf Stapledon. Wrote, so Last and First Men, it kind of alludes to that idea, that sort of generational shift. I think I didn't make it all the way through, even though he's great. And I will say, I think, to your point, Mark, definitely the mystery of space, even though we've explored none of it essentially, like all the movies shifted to, hey, if anyone's going to bother coming to Earth, our little shitty rock, like they either want to conquer us, which why they need our resources. They're not coming over just to say hello anymore. Mm-hmm. And like, that's what War of the Worlds, I think the thematic thing of War of the Worlds was. Olaf Stapledon, though, check out if you guys have some. Last and First Men, I think was about, you know what, I can't even say it. We don't even have time to talk about that, to get into that. But Olaf Stapledon.
Let me add one more to the list. First Man, which was the Damien Chazelle, Ryan Gosling movie about Neil Armstrong, and that was really interesting and a good sort of, if you like this episode of Twilight Zone, you might find that interesting. Cool. Because it's very much focused on Neil Armstrong's sort of like inner psychology and kind of what kind of person it would take to be able to sort of get on a rocket ship and strap yourself to basically a missile and try to go up onto the moon in all this isolation of space. And the movie's largely about like the type of person that would be able to do that. How would that person function in like everyday society and their family and stuff? Really
was Gosling drenched in sweat through the majority of the movie? Because that is what they're looking for.
He was not, but well, we should work on an app that you can like load any video into it and it just drenches the characters with sweat.
I would like that. Okay, so we have one last segment. Do you have time for this real quick, Mark?
Yeah, we'll wrap up quick. I think we have like two, right? We want to rate the episode and then.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, so we can rate quickly. So okay, what's your
so out of 5 stars? Now you're going to be you're going to be better at this than I am early on because I don't have a lot of Twilight Zone context yet. I'm going to say about a 3. I think it was a really interesting idea, and did a pretty good job building the tension for like the first half, and then it really drags. Like I said, there's a 5-star short in here. They didn't have a good 22-minute episode, but I'll give it a 3. I was entertained, and I wasn't able to guess it till the end what was going on.
So I always see the star system as hated it, didn't like it, liked it, really liked it, loved it. And I liked it. I mean, it was fine. It was a good, and what a hell of a kickoff to that series. I'm sure this was super shocking in 1959. Not that we should necessarily be watching it in that context, but having I think 3 is a perfect rating for this episode. It's about an average episode. It's okay. It was good. All right. Okay. And then our last segment, I'm going to give you the title. We're going to be watching this episode this next week, and we're going to do this a new podcast episode on this episode next week, episode 2, and I'm going to ask you to guess what you think it's about. The episode, which aired October 9th, 1959, is entitled One for the Angels. One for the Angels. And you have not cheated. You have not looked any of this up.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm thinking... this is probably going to be wrong, and I feel like now I'm like sort of typecasting myself into, I always think it's going to be a religious theme, but the name Angels is in it, so I feel like it's going to be something about somebody dying and them being, I'm going to kind of tie it into what I thought this one was. I think they're going to be in the afterlife and not know it. That's my guess. Good guess. And if you guys want to guess along with us, send us your... Wait, we should get a Gmail address for this. You know what? Send it to, You can tweet at me. I'm at FilmProfMark, and at some point we will get a Twitter account for this podcast. But you can
perfect.
Put it there, and we will see if anybody came up with a better guess than I did. No cheating. Yeah. Don't watch the episode before you send it in. But if you want to watch the episode before our next podcast episode,
it'll be a lot easier.
What we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. This was a lot of fun. I think we only have 155 left.
And they're not making any more of the old ones, at least, so we'll gradually catch up.
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks
for doing
listening. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, and thank you all for listening.
We should have some kind of a cool sign off.
Deja reading.